Alright, let's jump straight into the transformations on this guy, because that's the coolest aspect of our little mechanical puzzle we have going here. Now you'll see each of these little caps, there's 4 of each color, black with the blue controls and white with the red controls. And if you select the inner ring of any of these caps, you'll select that particular cap, which can then be pulled out or pushed in. Now, if all of the caps of one color are already pushed in and you try to push in a cap of the opposite color, he'll sort of break. The pieces go into each other and weird, and it's not very good. But hey, look, he fixed himself. And that's because on the base ground control, I have an option called limit breakage. If that's on, it's going to pop back. He's not going to break himself. If you turn that off, you can break him however you need to for your particular scene. And he won't fix himself. I'm going to turn that back on because he looks horrible broken. And let's see. So you have your controls, individual controls with the center ring. Now if you grab the outer ring, it will grab all caps of the same color. So I can grab all whites or all blacks at once. There we go. Grab all blacks. I need to turn this back to object. Yay! Okay. Much better. And again, limit breakage will prevent me from moving him at angles that he can't actually move at. Now if you pull him past and he can pop back some of the way, he will try to pop back some of the way. And now it's fun to push and pull all of these individual guys, but sometimes you just want to have a uniform ball that's going to flip reverse. And if you want to do that, you can turn on uniform transform and then play with the slider just above this black. It will switch in between black and white. Turn back off uniform transform and you'll get your individual cap controls back on. Now this open radius control here will, you see it shifts his radius in relation to the ground control. And that's just so that when he's rolling along, if you need him to open up and pull apart, you don't necessarily have to muck with your body control that you're probably using for your jumps and all that other stuff. You can just pull his open radius slider a little bit so that his radius better matches his new increased mass. Well, not mass, his new increased size. And notice that all of the ground controls will stay put on the ground, whereas if you're moving this other stuff, your ground control is not really staying on the ground anymore. And mainly by ground control, I mean this guy. This is the impact control. Let me pull him back down. This impact control is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a squash and stretch for when he slams into things or bounces off of things or whatever else you need him to do. And it has this rotation so that it will always stay glued to the ball. You just have to point it at wherever he's colliding. So he's hitting over here, he's, kind of bouncing off something. Then you can squash him from that direction. He just slammed in over there. Maybe he's jumping off the floor. You need it directly below him. Cool. Maybe you need it directly above, well, because he's smashing into the ceiling. You can do whatever you need. The expansion is how much of the volume he's maintaining. 1 to 1 is usually a good ratio. I leave it at 1. You can turn it off completely so he doesn't maintain volume at all, or you can turn it up a little bit higher so that he gains volume, but you have to be careful. That can get crazy pretty quick. You can't completely blow him out into infinity. I do have limits on it, but you can really smash him, flatten him like you got hit by a truck or something. Probably don't want to do that all of the time, but you never know when you might need something a little crazier. And then shift is where his mass is centered within his body. At 0, it's going to be flat center. You can change it so it's a little more towards the top or the bottom of the impact. I like to leave it at 0 most of the time. And let's see. This body control here. This is what we're going to use to animate him through the world for the most part. He's bouncing along, he's moving around, all of that good stuff. Now for his rotation, you can see that he's got these little arrows on him. Those arrows indicate the roll direction when you use this distance control. You input a distance that he's traveled and you'll get perfect ground contacts out of him. So, as an example, let's stick him right here. He's facing Z, so I'll just key him on Z here. Give him, how far does 20 take him? Sure. Key him there. Distance, he traveled 20, but he started at 0. And now you can see, oh, look how cute. He rolls just fine. And now if you need him cornering or something and you really want to, like, you tip him, he's really trying to turn that corner and he can't quite get enough traction, you can do that too. He'll be rolling. So his direction, roll direction, is totally dependent on which direction those arrows are facing. So you can twist him however you want, and that's the direction he's going to roll. Let's see. Now if you need him to offset, see, let's say we're rolling him here. Let's give him a little more space. So he's rolling, and we don't really like how this eye is wobbling. This eye is kind of rotating in a circle. It's not directly centered, and as he rolls, it kind of wobbles. So we'll use this center control that's inside the arrows to offset him in the beginning. And that looks like it probably wants to be at 20. Yeah, probably. Yeah, now his eye is fixed. So now he's staring straight at the camera. We could have a little more fun. We could just go like this, rotate in this direction. Okay, yeah, he's totally fixed on that camera, staring straight at us. And now it's fun and all to animate him through the world like this. Using the ground control, you know, we could make him do whatever we needed to. Ooh. Yeah, so we've got him moving however we want through the world here. But let's say it's getting a little tricky, we got a little bit of complicated stuff we want to do, nice path we want him to follow. Well, you know, motion paths really come in handy here, and we have this right here, use motion path. You just turn that slider onto 1, he pops over to the motion path, and you edit the motion path to your heart's content. Right now he's, whoa, totally freaking out. I think that's because he's got, yeah, he's animated on these two. So what happens is, let me show you how to use this. You've got your use motion path, and it's not a straight 0 to 1. It does blend. See, he slides nice and even. So we're going to animate that control. We're going to say he gets to about here, and then we want him to try jumping over to that motion path. So we're going to key, and we're going to key it on. Oh, that's quite a jump. That'll be interesting. But we don't want these controls, these can be animated on top of the motion path. So we don't really want those impacting him if we're just using the motion path. Now we can animate those after he's on the motion path, like we're layering animation over the motion path. But for right now, we want him to go straight to the motion path and not do anything else. So I'm going to just drop all these keys back to 0. And give me a moment to make sure my tangents are all nice and flattened out there, because yeah, they look totally fine. So now he's gonna, okay, I didn't have anything animated on him before, so I'm gonna back him up just so that we can see he was animated before. So now he's going, and when he hits that, he'll slide into it. He doesn't directly pop. So you can go back and forth between the motion path and the regular free world controls. The thing you are going to want to watch is, because we've got one motion path for the whole scene, more or less, you're going to need to adjust that. If you want him to start here, you're going to need to go into the motion paths animation curve, change how far along he is at what time. But, I think that's pretty standard for any motion path you use. And let's see, last but not least, gonna come over here and show you these guys. Down here at the bottom of the ground control, we've got a bunch of different little display options. So I'll start right up at the top here. The geometry type, we've got two options. We've got the render and the proxy. Render is what you see right now. It's just a nice, prettier version of the geometry. Proxy is really low poly, so if you had 10 of these little balls bouncing around in a room, your scene might slow down on you, but turn on the proxy, you should be fine. Show geometry has off, on, that's just the visibility, and then reference. You can put it into reference mode so that you can't grab it. That's what it's in right now. You'll see if I try to grab my controls, I'm never accidentally grabbing my geometry instead, which is always nice. If you turn it to straight up on, then you'll be able to grab the geometry to your little heart's content. And of course, you can turn it off altogether. The skeleton, the same thing, on, off, and reference, because a lot of times you might need to see the skeleton but not necessarily grab the skeleton, and most of the time you're probably not going to even need to see it, so it's just turned off. But I can turn that visible for a little bit here, and you can see it's a total beast. That's because skeleton type here is on animation. There's two skeletons that went into this guy. The animation skeleton is a huge mess of constraints and interacting pieces to make him move properly. It is a total beast. You probably don't ever want this on because you won't be able to see anything else. But the other skeleton is, I just called it game skeleton because it's simplified, and it is basically only as much information as you would need to know where this guy is positioned, and the geometry is only driven by this lighter skeleton. This lighter skeleton is driven by the beast skeleton. So I'm going to turn that skeleton back off. And then the controls is pretty obvious what that is. That's all of your animation controls. Now, even when you turn them off, the ground control will remain visible so that you can grab it still and get them back on. And sometimes it's helpful to turn off the controls. You need to see something without all the clutter in the way, or you've got 5 balls interacting with one another and you only really need to animate one right now, but you keep grabbing the other guy's control. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And I think that about does it.